Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I'm going to take on a project. It's the Penn Fierce 2 8000 Live Liner. It's probably the biggest of those Fierce reels that they make because there's a lot going on here. And this reel originally came into the shop because the axle shaft would spin even in the connect mode. And I repaired that, and then we still have this residual carryover. The problem is that the carrier for the lower end for the rear drag assembly had snapped, and that wound up elongating some pieces in the drag assembly. So I'm going to take this whole thing off. I'll show you some of the common failure points. I'll show you why this thing was spinning the way it was, and then I'll show you how to repair this by replacing some of the worn parts. So we're going to start by removing the handle. You do that in a clockwise direction, and as I do that, I want to thank our first responders and essential personnel, law enforcement, EMT, police and fire, the hospital workers, long-term care facility workers, nursing home workers, people distributing the vaccines. I could go on and on about our local heroes and those that are helping us during the pandemic. Really do appreciate everything you're doing, and I thank you for your work and your effort to keep us all safe. So we're going to be removing the exterior pieces. The parts that we want to get to right now is this side plate. This controls a lot of what's going on here. I'm just trying to find the right screwdriver at the moment. These are pretty big Phillips head screws, pretty big reel. And you'll notice when I took the one arm off, I left the other arm on. And that's because there's a drive assembly underneath there that doesn't need to be disturbed. We'll show you one of the failure points on what was causing that axle shaft to backspin. I get that enough. And I don't know if I got it enough. I'm going to call that a weak part of this fishing reel design, but I do get it enough that people just can't understand. Like, they've tightened down their reels, they've tightened down the rear drag, and still the axle shaft spins backwards. So we'll show you that issue. We'll show you what's causing that partial movement there, and hopefully we've bought the right parts to correct all of this. So this reel, everything kind of jumps right around this side plate removal. If you can get through the side plate, then what will happen is you'll be able to take the rest of the reel apart, but you'll also be able to observe what the issues are that are going on inside this reel. Okay, so I've taken the 4 screws out. There's a seam here. This is not a through plate that goes up under the rotor, and so that means that you can remove this side plate by removing those 4 pieces. Here's your back part of the assembly. It's got a release tab here that's going to interface with these clips to trip that back up. It's got a retaining plate, and it's got a little lever here. This little stud is kind of key to what's going on in the reel, or at least what went on the reel initially. That little stud interacts with a groove in this pawl carrier here, or the anti-reverse carrier. And you'll notice that with that assembly out of the way, that this is going to turn, right? And that's what happened with this reel initially. What happened with this reel was the tie down on the casing was broken, and that just kind of rotated backwards regardless of what you did with the drag. So we're going to remove that, and we're going to make sure that we replace it. I'll show you the one piece underneath in the drag, and hopefully we'll get this thing back where we don't have this spin. As I mentioned, you have a throw right now. You can see how this carrier is moving just that little bit, and that's what's causing this to go. And that's a failure with a piece underneath that got rounded out. So to get to this, you have to remove the axle shaft. To remove the axle shaft, there's a little clamp here and a little screw, so be careful about that. That's the screw. It goes into my parts tray. Those of you that watch my videos know I use a the bottom of a milk jug for my parts tray. I try to keep all my pieces and parts in there. Then we should be able to lift that clip up and then pull it out. There's two C kind of clips on the side of that. That goes into my parts tray. Now we'll be able to remove the axle shaft. And that axle shaft is having a little bit of trouble coming through this crosswind block. And I think that was because of the way that the slop was in here initially. You can see how that's out of round. So what I did was I went ahead and I purchased a replacement crosswind block. I got that from mysticparts.com. They're a local Penn Parts distributor. And you can see the difference here in the circle there. Okay, we don't have to touch the top. If you're rebuilding the reel, you're going to remove the main gear at this point. You're going to remove your crosswind gear. You're going to clean them all up, re-grease them, but that's already been done because of the work that I did previously. We took the two side plate screws out that control the rear drag assembly. So now we're going to remove the rear drag assembly. A simple twist does that. And then we can remove the components inside of it. Now the bottom here is not affected by what we're doing. I'll take it out to show you what's in this rear drag assembly, but there's nothing going on here that you need to worry about. We have a cup carrier. That little cup is going to move back and forth depending on how you want to tighten or loosen the assembly. It rides on a preset of groove for the screw there. Then we have the tension spring, which goes in next. And then we have this assembly here, this spring. You'll notice that there's two long legs, and those two long legs go into the slots in that little adjuster we were showing you before. So you seat all of those. Coming up top then is your drag washer set and that little pawl container there. So we're going to push this out. Now notice you have a pin here. That's the thing that's going to make this thing go click click as you turn it. Just be aware that it's there. And there's a little metal ring that is kind of a seal ring there. Just be aware of it. Now there's a little groove in this pin, so it shouldn't shoot, but it doesn't hurt to just keep it to the side as you work on this. All right, I'm going to try and push this down now to get the rest of this assembly out and show you where the fault was here. So we have two problems here. And I hope to alleviate both of them. I'm going to replace that pawl carrier because that's one of the ones that was spinning. This is the pawl carrier, or I'm not quite sure what they actually call the term. I should probably just look on my schematic there. But you'll notice this one is butterflied, right? And that's because of the way that this broke free. And then this one here is broken out. So there was a lot of damage that went on in this. So we're replacing the pawl carrier and we're replacing this little click mechanism carrier. I just need a knife both of these bags. And then we'll show you how to reassemble this and hopefully we solve the issue there. So you can see the difference in the broken pieces. And all of that is contributing to that extra play in that reel. I've just taken the click mechanism now and I've inserted it into the top of this. So now we're going to go to our schematic. The schematic is also available from pennparts.com. We're going to look at the lineup here in terms of what's going on. So we have the looking for the right drag washer here. Here it is. Just can't get away from these. I knew I ordered one for this. So we have a small drag washer that goes on the top end of this before it goes into the carrier. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in right now. Then we can insert this into the carrier, just like that. Next up then goes in next. And when working with this stuff, generally speaking, you just need patience. It's not always going to work out the first time. Don't rush anything. There we go. I think we have it that time. Okay, now we have a firm bottom, so then we have the next drag washer, then we have the rounded drag washer, I believe. We have the top of the click case rides this way with the flat side up. And when you're installing this, you have to put it on over the top and then push that point in. Then we have our next metal washer. And we have the next drag washer. And now this is going to be the flat part that presses that, right? But it comes into the cup. So I'm going to turn that around this way. Just check one more time. Yep, we got that. And all we do now is we just merge the two. Remember that little metal part there? That's kind of important when you go to put this back in. Okay, once you have that seated, it should look nice and flush. You should see your little metal band here, and you're ready to reinstall this. So to reinstall this, then you want to get this where the lip of that metal band and the case, that groove in the case, sits in the runner. And if you press it, you should have it in now. You'll know because both sides of this is flush. I'm going to take my new Crosswind block now. I'm going to put this in. I'm going to lube it up. Now again, if you were rebuilding this reel, at this point you would go back in and you would lube up your main gear, which we've done here already. You can put some grease onto your pinion gear. I like to take the whole rotor off and service the bearing up there as well, but that's another class for another day. We can go put the Crosswind block in. You'll know which side is proper because you took the small screw out of the left-hand side when you went to do the clip removal. Now we can put the main gear in, and there's a bearing on the main gear which you would oil. And then we can work the shaft down. Now, again, if you're reworking this, clean the shaft off. It's already been cleaned. And get rid of any debris and then oil it. And now we can come back in here. And I know this is probably off camera and difficult to see at the moment. So what we've done is we've come through the Crosswind block. Then we've come through the carrier. And now we should have a ramp. Slide this up and down. One of the problems with this is it doesn't have an anti-reverse override, so it's kind of difficult to get that right. Now we should have that groove on both sides of the Crosswind block at this point, so we can put that little retainer in. So you might have to work it a little bit. Make sure that you get the grooves on both sides so that you can seat this properly. Turn that in then. I'm going to grab the micro screwdriver for that small screw. I'll lose it anyway. So these reels kind of get a bad reputation. There's a lot of moving parts in this, and a lot of these reels do break various parts. I think that this, the one that I was talking about before, had has the issue. There's clearly more of an issue there than the others. All right, let's see if we have that play in the spool now. Not nearly as bad. And as soon as we go to put that clip in there, this clip is going to just stop that, because it's going to stop that pinion there from moving. All right. So when you go to reinstall, make sure that everything is greased up and lubed. Just lay it over the top. I keep this arm on when I take the side plate off, because that facilitates putting the side plate back on. You'll notice right now it doesn't have a solid seal, but as soon as you clip, you just pulled it right in, right? So back on with the side plate screws then. And this will have eliminated the issue with the back spinning on the spool. So if you like this kind of stuff, I'm going to ask you to subscribe. And if you subscribe, I'm going to ask you to hit notifications. The subscriptions help me build my channel, and the notifications help you to see the videos that I am posting. And not everybody's going to want to watch every video that I do. I do all kinds. I do saltwater, freshwater. I do bait casting, spinning, conventional reels, level line reels. Just about any reel out there that comes into my shop gets a video on it. So this will give you a variety, and the notifications will allow you to select which ones you want to see and which ones maybe you don't have an interest in, which is, of course, fine. If you're interested in the art of reel repair, you'll see how these reels are made, and you'll see how they come together, and sometimes you'll see how they fall apart and what causes them to fall apart. All right, I'm going to put that second arm back on now. And there's a little screw that holds that in. That's kind of how we started this up. We'll put the handle on. We'll see what we got. So right now we're in bait feeder mode. We're in the on position. That's going to enable us to have the back pedaling of the spool. And as soon as we put this handle in and trip it, that should stop. And then we'll tighten down our drag. There you go. So now we've got just an absolute minimum, which is all you should have in this. We have a bait spinner in bait mode. We can tighten that up so that it's doing what it should do on the bait feeding mode. And now we're ready to go fishing again with this reel. So not every issue that comes in is just a tune-up. This one was interesting. As I mentioned, the carrier, which also acts as a retaining washer for the drag washers, was elongated. We had a butterflying going on the anti-reverse pinion clutch. You can see how it's butterflied here rather than being rectangular. We had an oval on the crosswind block. So when this had its initial damage, it broke a lot of pieces and parts, and that's what's caused the issue in this reel. So it's all repaired. It's ready to go fishing again, and we've all learned a little bit of a lesson from it. So I hope you've enjoyed it. It's not something that comes in every day. It's kind of one of these you have to play around with. But if you have a basic understanding of the reels and what makes them work, generally you can get your way through it. And as you saw me several times, I referenced the schematic diagram. I don't see these every day. And when you get into drag stacks, for example, which is what we were playing with there, it tells you the orders and sequences of the reel itself so that you can make that work. So if you have any questions about this reel or any reel, please leave them in the comments section. I do try to reply to all. If you're a first responder, thank you again for all it is that you do. And finally, if you have a reel that needs to be repaired, if you would like me to service that reel for you, contact me on an email on the business card that follows, and I'll be happy to provide you with the repair information. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing you all a great day and great fishing.